Warning: this content is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. Do not take this as medical advice, and this is not my recommendation. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Justin from Jennings Performance Coaching, and this is episode 5 of our physique development series. So, getting the most out of your physique. If you remember from the last several videos, first we talked about ranking the areas which are most important for physique development. And now we have worked through all of those, starting at number 1, which was diet, going to number 2, which was training, number 3, recovery. Now we're on number 4. If you haven't seen any of those videos before, go ahead and click the link down below. Go to my channel and watch all of those. But today we're talking about the 4th most important and everybody's favorite topic, performance enhancement. Yes, the dark side of bodybuilding, drugs. So how do you set up a PED protocol to get the most out of your physique and, most importantly, stay healthy? Now, remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm definitely not your doctor. And these are not my recommendations. This is simply what the science says and what the guys that have been doing this for a long time and are still relatively healthy are doing. With that being said, the most important thing when it comes to PD use is the length of time that you use PEDs. So just like training, diet, anything, you can't just do it for 12 weeks and expect to completely change your physique, grow a ton of muscle, all of that. Nobody ever did a 12-week cycle and became, I shouldn't say nobody, because Ronnie Coleman allegedly was a natural IFBB pro. But I'm going to say most of you guys watching this, including myself, can't take one cycle and become an IFBB pro. So you're going to have to string years of smart, consistent use together if you plan to use these things. What does that mean? It means taking care of your health. Number 1, you got to get your blood work. So before you ever take PEDs, if you are currently a natural that is thinking about using PEDs, first of all, seriously weigh the pros and the cons of using PEDs and sit down and have a real conversation with yourself about the health risks associated with that and see where you're at. See if you're willing to give up or willing to make some trade-offs there for some possible health outcomes. But number 2 thing, this is everybody should, before they ever touch any type of performance enhancement, you should see where you're at baseline. Go get your blood work done, see where your heart is, where your kidneys are, your liver. Before you ever start PEDs, some things you're going to want to look at is your cholesterol. LP(a) is a really important one at this point in the game because that is kind of your genetic risk factor for heart disease. Of course, your ApoB, that's going to be super important. HDL, LDL. Far as kidneys go, your creatinine. I'm assuming that if you're thinking about taking PEDs, your creatinine is going to be elevated because you're a trained individual with a lot of muscle mass. Cystatin C is kind of the best measurement for kidney health there. Your EGFR will probably be a little bit low too because that is a calculation. Your creatinine's taken into account when calculating your EGFR. see where your testosterone is, see where your lipids are, see where your kidney health is, see where your liver is. AST and ALT will both probably be elevated because you are a trained individual, somebody who's carrying a lot of muscle mass, training hard. So your GGT and bilirubin are probably your best bet there for getting a, what your liver health is at the start. An echocardiogram is also something that you're going to want to see there before you start PEDs. Make sure everything is healthy before you even start, because a lot of the risk that's associated with this stuff is cardiovascular, whether that's from elevated red blood cell count, left ventricle hypertrophy, plaque buildup. And so you want to make sure you're in a really good position to start that before you even start. And another thing that comes with the health side of it is you got to keep monitoring that. So the PEDs are expensive for sure. I know that. But whatever you're spending on your PEDs per month, my rule of thumb is put that into a savings account, that same amount, and that's your health account. That is, what you use to get your blood work done. That's what you use to get your organ imaging, your echocardiograms, all of that. Another thing that comes along with this is we don't want big fluctuations in hormones. So we want that to be relatively steady. If you're coming up, so you're on a blast, maybe, you should titrate up. Your hormones should come slowly up. And what a lot of guys have done in the past, and it's not recommended anymore from anybody that knows anything in this field, is the cycle model. So guys would do, I don't know, a 12-week cycle. You do a 12-week cycle of PEDs, whatever you're going to do, the old message board days, take your 500 tests, shut up, 500 tests, 400 deca, 50 D-ball a day, or whatever the crazy high blood pressure cycle was. They would do that for 12 weeks or so, and then they would come off, take a bunch of SERMs, and they would crash their testosterone because they've been suppressed. Clomid would go in, all of that stuff. It's not the smartest way to do this. It's not the healthiest way to do this. There are risks that come along with all of those drugs as well. All of your SERMs and antiestrogens. There are plenty of risks that come along with those that are just as risky or even more risky than the PEDs that you were using in the first place. The better model, what people are considering as a better model now, is what we call the blast and cruise model. So you have your true HRT, your hormone replacement therapy, and you stay on that pretty well year round. This is what most guys will do. They will stay on their HRT pretty well year round. And so they always have that constant baseline level of testosterone in their system. And then whenever they are trying to grow muscle in a growth phase, they will add in more testosterone, more anabolics, more growth hormone, whatever it might be, and up the dose so they can accrue more tissue. And then once they're at the end of that gaining phase, normally whenever you get a little too fluffy for your liking, so you need to pull some fat off, we all know that you can't build muscle in a calorie deficit. If you're in an energy deficit, in a calorie deficit, you're not going to be building muscle. So there's no need for a high drug load. Go back down to HRT and cruise at HRT or slightly above or wherever you feel is a good idea there for your fat loss phase. Let yourself kind of recover a little bit, so to speak. Your hematocrit should come down a little bit on the lower doses. Your lipids should kind of rectify themselves on your lower doses. And that absolutely beats the cycling model. The word cycle comes from the term cycle of abuse. And so, what guys would do, the old way that guys would do it, is they would abuse the compounds, wreck their health, and then they would have to cycle off to let their health recover. And then, once their health recovered, they could cycle back on, continue the cycle of abuse the compounds, and then their health would be in the tank and they'd have to cycle off again. If you're a little bit smarter, the first point that we were talking about, if you're a little bit smarter with the way you do things, make sure that you have ancillary medication, blood pressure medication. If your blood pressure starts getting high, that is probably the number one problem that you're going to see with PED use is elevated blood pressure. Number two is going to be skewed lipids. So make sure you're taking care of those things and use compounds that are on the safer side. None of these compounds are safe. Even your bioidentical hormones like testosterone and growth hormone that your body naturally makes, if you take infinite amounts of those, they're not safe. You'll have elevated hematocrit. You'll have elevated blood pressure. You'll have insulin resistance from the growth hormone. So none of the compounds are safe, but what I'm saying is stick with compounds that aren't neurotoxic, that aren't shown to be renal toxic. Don't use orals that are shown, 17 alkylated orals that are liver toxic. Stay away from those. This takes us to our next point. So, how would a guy set up his cycle if number one, if he'd already taken point number one into consideration? I want to be as healthy as possible. I want to be able to do this for a long time. I don't want to bodybuild for a couple years and then completely burn my liver out and be on a transplant list and just be done with it at age 28 or whatever he is. He wants to do this for a long time, so he's taking his health seriously, got his pre-cycle blood work. Pre-cycle, you just heard me use the word there. Got his natural blood work, is getting blood work during his cycle, checking his blood pressure, taking any ancillary medications that he needs to, and he's going to, build his first cycle. How would he do it? So what most guys will do, especially with their first one here, is they will start at a true HRT. So guy's going to be smart. He's going to start at true HRT. For most guys, that's amount of testosterone that puts you in that optimized physiological range there. That 700 to 1,000 nanogram per deciliter optimized physiological range. And then he'll start, titrating that up over time while monitoring blood pressure, resting heart rate, getting his blood work done. And then once he starts to have estrogenic side effects, so water retention, mood, gyno, anything like that, that is the upper limit for the testosterone that he can use. We don't want to put an AI in and smash our estrogen down just so we can use more testosterone. That's not a smart move. There's risks associated with smashing your estrogen. Estrogen's cardioprotective, it's neuroprotective. You need that androgen estrogen ratio to be correct. That's how you're going to be the healthiest. So you don't want to do that. So what that guy will do then is he'll dial his test back to the last safe dose that he didn't have those side effects. And then normally the next best idea is to start a replacement dose of growth hormone. So a guy will start at a physiological dose or replacement dose of growth hormone, and then over time start to titrate that up until insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity becomes a problem, or the side effects, numb hands, water retention, that becomes a problem. Again, monitoring your blood pressure, your blood glucose, all of that the whole time. And that is your upper limits of the growth hormone that you can use. And so why only use testosterone and growth hormone? They're bioidentical hormones. They're produced by the body. We know how the body manages those. So whenever you use those, you kind of know what to expect with how your body handles those, breaks them down. Testosterone aromatizes into estrogen, 5-alpha reduces into DHT. Then your growth hormone, elevates your IGF-1. So not to say that bioidentical hormones are safe, because at a super physiological dose, they carry some serious risks, but they're predictable in what they do in the body. Now, once this guy has found his upper limit of testosterone and growth hormone, he is going to hang out there for as long as humanly possible. He's going to hang out there for quite a while, build a lot of muscle, be super happy, probably not have a ton of side effects, but he's going to monitor his blood work, monitor his blood pressure, monitor his blood glucose, and build muscle for quite a while. Now, eventually, he's not going to be able to build any more muscle because he's bigger. He needs more androgens to build muscle. But we've already talked about he can't use any more testosterone without having estrogenic side effects, and he can't use any more growth hormone without having side effects related there. So what most guys would do is add in a third compound, another androgenic anabolic, something like a DHT derivative like Masteron and Primobolan are probably your safest choices. A lot of guys will like to add in a nandrolone, something like DECA or NPP. I'm not a fan of those. Nandrolones are neurotoxic. I don't know a lot of people that have had great experiences with those. Prolactin side effects are pretty nasty. You can get prolactin-induced gyno from the nandrolones. Tren is another one that falls in there. The 19-nor, nandrolone compound, would stay away from that one as well. Equipoise, Boldenon, that's one that a lot of guys have been using here lately in, with the events that have gone on causing the DHT shortage. There are some risks associated with that are not normally associated with the DHTs like Primobolan and Masteron. There's some studies that showed that it might be a little bit kidney toxic. We don't want to mess with that. Also, the elevated hematocrit is going to cause a rise in blood pressure, and that's going to be bad for the kidneys as well. So a little bit riskier than just a regular DHT derived compound like Primobolan and Masteron. So if this guy's risk adverse and he's trying to be as safe as possible, he will then add in Masteron or Primo only if all his other variables are dialed in. So he's at the max limit of testosterone and growth hormone that he can run, and his training is dialed in, so his programming's solid. I mean, all 4 of the other variables that we've already talked about in these videos, the training, the diet, the recovery, you're eating enough to grow, because we're expecting to grow muscle, right? We're not in a deficit. You can't grow muscle in a deficit. So he's eating enough to grow. He's training hard enough to grow, and his programming is smart. He's training with enough volume and frequency that he can grow. And he's recovered. So he's sleeping, 7 to 9 hours a night. He's not just stressed out all the time, not going through a crazy time at work, cortisol super high. He's actually in a position where he should be building muscle. Then this guy will add in a little bit of DHT. And when I say a little bit, I mean, if this guy's smart, he's going to add in a little bit. And then he will run that until he runs into the same problem where he can no longer build muscle, and then a little bit more DHT derivative goes in. And so that is kind of how you'd set that up. But the most important aspect of all of this, guys, I'm telling you, is take care of your health. You're looking to build the most muscle possible. You're going to have years of PED exposure. So make sure you're being smart with your health. Make sure that you're taking, any ancillary medications, anti-inflammatories, antioxidants, blood pressure, insulin sensitivity medication. Make sure you're taking all your ancillaries, getting your blood work done, taking your blood pressure, taking your blood glucose. You don't want to mess your health up. And none of this is going to work if you're sick. So everything that we talked about that these guys are doing to build the most muscle possible using PEDs, it's because they're healthy. So you got to stay healthy first. Use smart stack designs. Don't use exotic compounds that are going to wreck your liver, wreck your kidneys, anything like that. Use a smart stack design and use it sparingly, because the more you use, the more you have to use in the future to continue to grow. That's what all the best guys are doing. Listen to any of the guys in the industry talk, the best coaches, the best bodybuilders. This is how they're managing their PED use. So that is how I would set up my PED stack design and how I would look to get the most out of PEDs if I was going to use PEDs. Let me know what you guys thought. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you're interested in coaching, all of my links are down below. You can contact me over on Instagram at justin.jennings.coach. And so at Justin Jennings Coach over on Instagram, code Titan JPC with Titan Nutrition. That will give you 20% off your entire order. Find me over on Kit. Sign up for my newsletter. That goes out every Monday. And thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought. Like and subscribe. And until next time.